Welcome, everyone, to Functionally Enlightened, where we discuss holistic wellness and personal growth. So, today I'm excited to have a seasoned speaker, author, coach, and facilitator, Marilyn, who brings a wealth of experience and insight to the table. She's passionate about squashing stigmas and fostering deep listening, and she'll share why these practices are essential for personal growth and transformation. Marilyn's best-selling book series, In Just One Afternoon, Listening into the Hearts of, and I'll put ellipses here because I know that you have a nice series and I probably want you to discuss that with our audience. But it goes into the experiences of diverse individuals, men, twins, millennials, and to those impacted by opioid addiction and even beyond. So, through these stories, she aims to shed light on the human experience and inspire compassion and understanding. Thanks so much, Marilyn, for joining us. Can we start by going over your unique set of circumstances that led you on this line of work?
Life. I just, unbeknownst to myself, knew something about listening. I don't know what it was, but I knew something, and I was not smart enough to discern maybe sometimes what I was listening to. So I would just follow what was coming. So I was that person that you would say, do you wanna? And I wouldn't even look into what you wanted. I would just say, sure. Do you want to go? Sure. Do you want to do this? Sure. My glass has always been a half full kind of a glass. So that has been wonderful, but it's also gotten to me into some trouble, but I wouldn't have changed a thing because we got to get through the trouble to get to the other part.
Right. So, would you say that you've taken on entirely too much as far as your work-life balance, or do you feel like you've maintained a pretty steady balance throughout?
I think I have maintained a really good balance because I I've listened. And when you listen, you're not just listening with your ears. That is not the only, that is a piece of the listening story, but everything around us, every walk of life, every piece of furniture, every smell, every touch, everything is telling us something. Everything is feeding back some information, some experience, something. And I became a listener, and I was aware that that was happening. And so I started listening for symbols and signs and miracles. And because I know that if you don't look for them, you're not going to see them. If you don't listen for them, which is a seeing, which is a looking, because when you see, right, you're listening to know that you need to look. And then you're listening to get what you're looking out, which the information you're getting from the looking, you're listening to pull it out. And I'm like, wow, this is it's a form of love. Love is a really great place to hang your hat. Love is a really great place to just, whether you know what you're doing or you're not, you just turn on that love. And it's amazing how safe you are. It's the same thing with listening. Without love, we're going to die. Without listening, we're going to die. It's like breath. If you don't do it, you can't breathe. And so it is that important that and it doesn't take work. It's an art form. The more you tap in and are aware, the less work you're doing. So to go back to your question, yes, I've created a balance, and then I listen for when I'm being hit on the head, when the hit is telling me, Marilyn, you got to balance more. And that happens, right? That's part of growth.
Right. So you've developed this series, or you've authored this series of books, and I'd love for you to dive into, if you want to talk about which one came first, if they all
Sure.
evolved around the same time, how did they come about?
So I can't stand when people are not visible. I don't like it when people are invisible, whether they impose that on themselves because they didn't have a role model, or they didn't have that thing, or they weren't aware they had the thing. I think we all have a thing. It's just, where is the thing? How big is the thing? Who's giving us permission to work that thing. We need people out here showing us the way. And I think that there's a lot of people who haven't seen the way. So they feel invisible by their own doing, right? And then sometimes they're in a place in this world that they are not honored, they are not respected. And then they also feel that feeling of being invisible. So certainly, if they felt strong about themselves, somebody can't make you feel invisible. You feel that on your own, but it doesn't hurt and it doesn't help when somebody is focusing on that. So if we're talking about even the LGBTQ plus communities and all the things that are going on around, I mean, a lot of people feel invisible. And I wanted people to not feel that way. I wanted to help give people an opportunity to be seen by themselves and others. And what I have found is that we have made too much out of things that don't need to be too much. We have complicated situations, experiences, relationships that aren't that complicated. We've overcomplicated things, and I want to help people make it easier. So I started writing these books, and I thought the best way to do it would be to interview people, because there's no better way to learn about the human race than by hearing somebody's story. You don't have to agree. I mean, I could tell you plenty of things today that you will not agree with, and you may even hate, but you cannot tell that I am at least passionate and caring about what I'm saying, right? I'm not a bad person. So when you listen to somebody's story, you have a direct line to their heart. And I like to bypass, and get to that and include the fears and everything. So my first book was about men. So it was in just one afternoon, listening to the hearts of men. I had a lot of men that were my clients. As a coach, and I began in my family, and I began to realize, oh my God, they don't feel so good about themselves. They want to express something, and they don't know what words to choose. I had started a networking organization for women, and men wanted to come because they wanted to learn how to build relationships. They wanted it. They were making mistakes, but they wanted to learn how to do it efficiently. And that was just a piece. And then I realized, how many daddies are out here who want to be mushy, but maybe they haven't seen a mushy daddy, so they don't think mushy is a good thing for a man to be. But how can you be a daddy and not be mushy? So I started interviewing men from all walks of life to give men permission to be mushy, to give men permission to feel, express their feelings, emotions, everything. And I only had, and it was interesting because I had 20 men in my book. And people would say to me, how'd you get 20 men? I'm like, I could have gotten 120 men. All I did was say, would you mind letting me interview you? And everybody said, except for one, said yes. And then when you started getting into it, you heard, like there was one man who had trouble as a father because, you know why? Because growing up, he was locked up in a room with a pot to literally piss in. He couldn't knock on the door to go to the bathroom. He had to piss in that pot. Well, how do you grow up? How do you grow up as a daddy when that's how you grew up as a child? So when we hear those stories, we can be more forgiving. And that's the idea. So, and we have more understanding when we listen. So the men shared beautiful stories. And then after that, my mother is a twin, and she's turning 99 tomorrow. And she's, my aunt lives, this is the first big way I'm saying it. And my aunt is 90, well, my aunt's 99 too, and she lives in New Jersey. And they're both very powerful, crazy two women, and they're celebrating their 99. So my second book was twins, because I knew there was a lot to learn from the dynamics. I want people to uncover dynamics. I want to share how we can unpack things in relationships so we don't make them hard. And so twins are great they teach us about relationship. They teach us about conflict, because most twins make up. Well, if they can do it, why can't the rest of us? So there were those lessons. And then millennials, there was such negativity around millennials, that all millennials are in the basement and feeding off of their parents. And that's not true. And so millennials are not all in the basement eating off of their parents. They can sometimes get a job, but sometimes it is cost efficient, and they are wanting to work, and they do want to be mentored by us older people. They don't just want to take the reign and go. They want help, but we have to also be willing to not feel jeopardized by them. So there was a whole bunch of information about twins. And then people impacted by opioid addiction was the next one. And it's a terrible fate in life to be somebody who has mental illness. And and I think we're all a breath away from it. I don't think any one of us can escape trauma. And trauma is the kingpin, the seedling for mental health, mental issues. And so people impacted by opioid addiction are not on the corner with a tin can. They need things. They need resources. They need things. And the families that deal with it, I felt very sorry for them too. So I wanted to show how people handle things and who they are. And then my next one was Black Daddies, because that's a whole nother community of individuals that we don't normally see them in the best light. And I wanted to show them being good daddies. And I have gotten some great Black daddy friends, and they are single daddies, their grandparents. Some of them have been in prison, and they know what it's like to come out and have your children not want to be with you anymore. And so, my whole world is about helping ease things up. And so I do it in different ways. I do it like talking to you. I do it through these books. I do it through some other work that I do. So through social media, just so people can see.
So you have a lot to share in these books and these interviews, and you highlighted a couple of stories in there. Is there something that you've experienced yourself? A lot of our listeners come from the chronic illness community, or they have family, loved ones that have been through the ringer. And so I know a lot of the people that gravitate towards putting the information out there and finding ways to deal with trauma, like your books, like I imagine even just the interview themselves was probably a very therapeutic experience. So can you share with us what came about in your own life to help you really focus and hone in on this?
So I was diagnosed with rheumatoid juvenile arthritis at the age of 10 months old. And when you have something like that, for me, going through my life, my young life, my young adult life into my other part of my life, I never used it as a pity party, because it was like having a right arm or a left arm. I didn't know the difference. It was just something that I dealt with throughout my life. And whether it was pain, in an arm or a leg, or I couldn't do certain things that other people would do, I managed to compensate. I managed to find the things I could do, or at least if I couldn't do certain things, then I found myself okay with being able to do what I could and not be upset about what I couldn't. And then now I'm 70. So 40 years ago, I developed arthritis in my eyes. And that has literally, now that was hard to get, that was hard, harder than the things in my body. The things in my body, for some reason, came and went, and I was able to handle it. But my eyes, that was a different story. So I had developed iritis, and then I had an acute glaucoma. My pressure in my eyes built up in my left eye, and I had to have surgery. And I have learned through the years, you have glasses, you go to good doctors. I've learned how to compensate. And then, there were times. So when it came to my eyes, that's an issue. That was a big issue because it's hard to read a phone. It's hard to read the computer. And so, I got good glasses and all those things, but it's still, if there was too much glare, because I was really light sensitive, then I couldn't read what was on the page. And you have to ask people. You got to learn and be okay with asking for help, because if you don't, you're going to do without. And I'd rather ask for help than to not have something. So I always would ask for help. And then I had cataract surgery in my right eye 10 years ago, and I went into a full-blown iritis attack. And it is like you want to rip your eyes out of your head. And the doctor didn't treat me well enough and didn't prepare me well enough. And that's a very important thing that I am not good at. I take what doctors say sometimes and say, okay, trust them, okay. Well, I should not have trusted this doctor, but I only knew what I knew. I didn't know what I didn't know. And then my doctor, I have only specialist for my eyes and also my teeth, because as a child having arthritis, I was put on cortisone very young, and I was on prednisone, and that destroyed my teeth, and it didn't do such a great job on my eyes. So since I've been in my early 20s, I've had gum disease. So I literally have basically no teeth. I have all, I've had implants and I have bridges and I have basically no teeth because of all the stuff. But I say to myself, well, at least I got something, right? You got to say that. And so my eye doctors have not wanted to do anything additional with my eyes, because as soon as they touch them, I go into an inflammatory kind of effect, right? I go into iritis. And I've needed a cataract surgery on my left eye, and I had a calcium deposit on my right eye. And they needed to be worked on, but we kept waiting and waiting and waiting. And I guess it was back in January, my doctors said that they thought it was medically a good time. So I said, okay. So my doctor sent me to this wonderful human being at Duke at the eye clinic. I mean, he's a delightful human being. He travels around the world and he does cataract surgeries and cornea transplants around the world with kids and people who've never been able to see. He wants to cure blindness. This is the human. And so this is the kind of doctor I want. I want a doctor who's going to look at me as a human being, because, there are things that happen. So I went to him for the consult, and he told me, as far as the cataract, the left eye, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst he's ever done, I was a 6. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh, why couldn't I be like a 2? But a 6 was better than a 7, 8, or 9, or a 10, right? And he said, I got you. I said, okay. And then he said, and on the right eye, it's the cornea, and we'll take care of that, and blah, blah. And that was going to be 2 weeks later. So I said, okay. So I had the cataract surgery, and I was like seeing things I have not seen in so many years. I thought I literally looked at my husband one morning and said, I think I'm becoming a prophet. I was seeing things that were like I hadn't seen them before, like the bathroom floors in my house. I hadn't seen the color. I thought they looked dirty. But when I realized I just didn't see the variance in the color before. And my husband was driving me all over, because I couldn't drive yet. He was driving me all over town, and I was looking at things that I remembered. You go to restaurants and the menus are on the wall, right? And I could never see them. I'd always have to have somebody else see them, or they'd read me the first line, and I would make a rash decision on what I wanted to eat quickly, so I wouldn't have to go through the whole list or make somebody go through the whole list, right? So let's say I was having a salad, I would look at the menu and say, what's the salad dressings? And they would rattle them off. And you know how you want to go back sometimes and review it? I wouldn't want somebody to do that because it takes too much time. So I just pick one, right? That's how I would compensate. So I would go to the restaurants and I'd look at the walls after my cataract surgery, and I started being able to see the menus. And I couldn't drive at night because the glare was so bad all through these last few years that we started to drive, not me, but I was in the car and I was started being able to see the lines in the road. And that was like amazing. And then I saw some corners that I have to tell you all, I would go over plenty of times because I couldn't see them. When you turn, make a right turn. But in the car with my husband, I was able to see the corners just as a passenger. So I was like, wow, this is great. And my daughter turned around and she said, you're taking in more information. And I'm like, wow, I'm taking in more information. And it was so much fun. And I was just, can't even tell you, I can't describe the happiness and the joy. And then 2 weeks later, I went for this, and I had no idea what that was going to be. I don't know if I didn't ask. I'm telling everybody, ask everything you want to ask, because I didn't ask. And they didn't tell me. And the surgery itself wasn't terrible, but the after was excruciating. And I didn't realize that what they were doing. They had to lift the cornea. They had to put a chemical down. Then they had to scrape it. And then they washed it off. And then they put a temporary lens. And the thing they were watching out for was arthritis, that because they did the surgery that they would, I wouldn't have an arthritic attack in my eye. So I was on prednisone, I was on all kinds of eye drops. And this surgery on the right eye was on Monday, on Friday. And I was due to go back on Monday because they wanted to monitor me regularly. And I went back to Duke on Monday and I didn't have an inflammation really. So that was good. But then Wednesday I started and the pain was so terrible from Sunday. And I was like, oh my God, I was wincing. It was so bad. My husband was like, couldn't stand to watch because it was constant pain. And Wednesday, the pain had shifted. It went from being the pain, like surgery pain, to something else. I didn't know what that other thing was, but I was not going to wait and find out. And here's the message, we know our bodies better than anybody, but we got to listen. And trusting ourselves is a journey, no different than any journey. And I have been on a journey to trust myself through the listening. And when you listen, you get a reward. And the reward is you heard something, good or bad. You heard something, whether you liked it or you didn't. You got information. That's a reward. And so I could hear that there was a sliver of a difference between the excruciating pain from the surgery and something else. And I didn't know what that something else was, so went back to Duke. And the doctor looked at me and said, your eye is angry. I'm like, oh, what does that mean? And I had an infection. And that was bad. And so they took a culture. It ended up that the infection in my eye was MRSA. And that's how an eye about flipped. So they took the culture that Wednesday and put me on a very heavy dose of an antibiotic for my an eye drop that I had to do every hour. Now, I was on 9 eye drops through the left eye and the right eye, and then they added all this for the infection. So I made it like a job. To me, getting healed was so important. I didn't want the pain, but I wanted my eyes. And so I got up every day like I would go to work. I got up at 5:30 every single day, and I would do, wash, whatever. I couldn't shower. I couldn't wash my hair I just started washing my hair. And I would get up and I would take my pills, oral pills, and I would start the eye drops like at 6:30 in the morning. Because I wanted those hours. I wanted every hour I could to get those eye drops in my eye. I didn't want to waste one time because it meant, my eyesight. And so I lived with the pain for weeks. And then the infection went away. And I can't wear regular glasses, so these are readers, and they're not that great. So I went to my computer today this is the first podcast I've done since all of this started because I can't trust myself. I couldn't trust myself to click the right thing because I couldn't see. So so I hooked up my computer yesterday to do this podcast because this is so important that we talk about pain. It's so important that we don't avoid it, that we don't run away from it, that we approach it, we talk about it, we share it, because what you resist persists. That's number one. It makes the pain even worse when you avoid it. I would get no help if I had. And besides which, how are you going to experience anything pleasurable, freedom or otherwise, if your freedom comes from pain, and not necessarily physical pain, but any kind of pain. If we don't experience it, we can't get to the pleasure. Because it's going to stand right there, and it's not going to let you get any further. It's a boundary, and it's a thick. You're talking about a wall. That's a wall that you cannot penetrate. So I don't want to do that. So I made this a job, and I got up. I put my eye drops in, and I dealt with it to the best that I could. And I have to tell you that the men around me have flourished. And you lie in bed with your eyes and you can't see, and you're keeping them closed 90% of the time. You're circling. I circled my head, my life, more than one time, just thinking, processing. Why am I here? Why did this happen to me? And all of those things. And about men. And I saw the men in my life, the women too, but the men were just showing up in ways that I kind of sat back, and I just kind of felt this enormous amount of joy, like a fragrant joy that was just oozing, because I could see, when I could, or hear what they were doing or how they were talking to me or the kind words people were sharing. And it just blew my doors off. And I had to lie there day in and day out. And then this infection, it just went away. And now I'm blurry. And now I got to deal with the blurriness. And then there's more to do with this now. And I have a blurriness, and it could take a couple of months to go away. And some days I sit back and I'm like, damn, why? What am I? And I've often said, why this? I'm a tool. I'm a listening tool. I'm a helper. I'm out here, exposing all kinds of parts of my life to help make a difference. Why this? Because this has slowed me down, has popped my balloon. I've lost time of the things that I was doing. And I don't think and one of the things that has come to me is I don't think, because of having chronic pain, even though it was not my identity, it's still a part of my life. I don't think that I've always looked at other people's pain as being authentic. I think I looked at pain measured by my life of stuff. And I don't think I was as considerate. I'm more considerate now of somebody's paper cut than I was. And so that's a big acknowledgement. And I do want to talk about exactly what you're talking about on this show. I think we all need to talk as much as we can. And I honor you so much for doing this, because it's not popular. People run away from things that are not popular. And we just have to keep doing it.
So on the show, we typically go into how people overcame, and you've been sharing your story about, just the whole mental aspect of things. I think that's one of the most significant pieces, especially when we're dealing with chronic disabling conditions, not just a chronic condition. And, there's so many people that can still do things, still go to work, still have outdoor activities. And then for those of us who experience a severe disability, the mental anguish and the grieving process, and sometimes it never really ends because it's a continuous physical disability that you're dealing with. So you'll revisit that. But your whole outlook about looking beyond and going towards recovery, trying to find ways to best manage whatever condition you're going through at the time and look for what's in the future. So can you share with us some of those mindfulness tricks that kept you afloat?
Well, I'm a bull in a china cabinet when it comes to things that I'm working on. So I formed a nonprofit a couple of years ago with other people. I don't do anything alone. I'm in a team. I team with everything because I mean, there's no point in doing anything alone. And I had to, with this nonprofit, we're involved in a lot of different things within North Carolina and other states as far as substance use and addiction and mental health and youth and family issues and things and LGBTQ plus issues and all of those things. I had to give up my control. That wasn't easy. But either I gave it up or everything would be down the drain. And I had to look at this and say, it isn't, Marilyn, it is bigger than you. I had to say, whatever other people decide to do, let them. Things happen for a reason. Even if I have to decide what the reason is myself, if I have to give things a reason and a title, but I had to walk away and say, you know what? Let them. And I will tell you that nothing that was done was so bad or so wrong. In fact, a lot of it was so right. And you know, the good part of my walking away is that other people got empowered to do even more. And so it's like, and now that I'm not in bed 24/7, because I was in bed 24/7. My husband fed me everything, gave me coffee in the morning, brought me all, because nobody wanted me in a kitchen. You know, I couldn't see, I couldn't cut anything, I couldn't turn anything on. I mean, nothing. I mean, I couldn't, there were times that I had to walk around with my eyes closed because the light, any light would bother me. So I had to walk away from things and let them be. And now that I have seen, not from the people necessarily, but from the situations have complemented the fact that I walked away. It's like that there have been jewels that have occurred because other people have been able to do things. And we are meant to share it. We are not meant to do it by ourselves. So that was a big deal for me, is letting that kind of stuff happen. And as I was saying, I have a 99-year-old mother that lives like a mile away from me. And I am the organizer of her life. And when you go through this, you have no bandwidth. There is none. It is Zippo. I had nothing. I didn't want to organize anything. I didn't want to call anyone. I didn't want to do anything. So I had to be okay with turning my mother's care over to my daughters, who are fabulous, but you know, they're busy. They both are mothers. They have children. They both work full time. They're married. Everybody's busy. I had to be okay with them not babysitting my mother like I would. There were some things, and my mother had to be okay with it too. My mother had to be okay with, because my mother is extraordinary, and she's got an incredible head. Does not have dementia. She may not remember everything, but she does not have dementia. She's self-reliant, self-sufficient, and she wants things, and she's got questions. And I had to be okay with not having the answers and not even wanting to give her an answer. And she had to be okay with not bothering me. Like, my mother will call me 10 times a day about what she should wear the next day. And I want to do that for her, but I couldn't. I know that my mother's 99. She wants somebody to talk to. I'm that person. I couldn't do that all the time, and I had to be okay with it, and she had to be okay with it. We all had to be on the same page. I also made a point of eating well, even though I couldn't eat. There were plenty of days where I could not consume anything. I tried, but there were days I just couldn't. I was in too much pain. But what I did eat, I made sure was colorful, and that was good quality food. I did not eat any kind of bad food because I needed as many nutrients as I could,
Exactly. Yeah.
as I could consume, including water. You know, like my husband went and bought me kombucha. I mean, I did everything that I could think of, even in small dosages. We don't have to measure everything based on like a big thing. I mean, we have to give ourselves permission to do, and anything is better than nothing, in my opinion. So having a pepper that's red for lunch, it may have been the only thing I ate, but it was a pepper and I ate it. So that's another thing. I took really good care of myself as best I could. And it didn't mean that I wasn't angry. And I was traumatized when I went to bed at night because there was another thing. If you sleep on your back, it's one thing. I tend to like to sleep on my side. And when I would sleep on my left side, right, on the pillow, the left eye is automatically closed. The right eye does not, right? It's closed, but if you wake up in the middle of the night and you want to look at your watch or the time or get a drink, your eye opens. Well, what I realized was on my left, like this eye would open. I didn't have any vision. I was waking up in the middle of the night and I thought I died. I thought I had lost all my vision. And then prior to all this mess, this was my weaker eye. This was my stronger eye, right? Now it's the reverse. So my head did not understand this. So I had to take my time because, one eye wants to open. I didn't know which eye to open. And I would freak out. I thought I was dead. So then I realized, okay, if I sleep on this side and the pillow is on this side, this eye won't open in the middle of the night. This will. I had to do that. I took care of myself in that way so I wouldn't be traumatized, because at night, people hear this all the time. It's really hard at night when you have cancer or anything at night. You're by yourself. It's dark. The time just seems to drip by. And I was freaked out. So I had to breathe, and I had to do what was next to help me not freak out. And what was next was making sure how I slept. So I had to listen to myself to know and not accept. Here's the other thing. You don't have to accept. We have to accept pain, but we don't have to accept pain. If that makes sense. We have to accept that we're going to go through it. There are things that are tough, but we can look for whatever can soothe us and the joy. So
that's the neuroplasticity part of it. A lot of the people that come to me, they are living in that state of pain, and they are living in that sympathetic mode where they're more the flight or fight versus the rest and digest. So when you're capitalizing on sleep, that's one of the main pillars. And I like how you were saying finding a way to make sleep possible for you, whatever that may be, as long as you're able to get that consistent sleep.
absolutely.
And make, your sleep hygiene is going to be different from someone else's, but if it works for you, so you can get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, hopefully, and also get into that deep rest mode, the deep sleep, that's what's going to aid in the recovery. And unfortunately, a lot of people who are undergoing surgeries or have these traumatic experiences, they can't get into that deep sleep.
I know.
And that just impacts all of the downstream hormones immensely.
It does.
I'm glad that you found a way to deal with that traumatic episode.
Well, I didn't sleep well normally. I have, from all the arthritis that I've had and all the medication, I have digestive issues. You can't have this stuff without having, and when you're on a lot of meds, you can't, I don't know about everybody else, but I have reflux. I've had ulcers since I was 7 years old. So, sleep has not been a very comfortable place for me normally. So, and when your eyes are bothering you or anything, you get tired easily. You know, the strain of walking around and having everything blurry is exhausting. I mean, it literally is exhausting. So I took sleep anytime I could get it, whether it was during the day or in the morning or whatever. We have to allow we are so important to ourselves and each other. We've got to honor ourselves and do whatever we can. I mean, there were plenty of times that I have lied here and said, am I really in this much pain, or am I looking for sympathy and pity? And I had to, because I'm not used to this. I mean, I have chronic illness, obviously. I mean, but I'm still not used to allowing myself to like be there. But when I've had to, I have. But I don't think that I want to pay so much attention to what my limitations are. I will know that's another thing that has come to me. And I think it's really the things that have come to me, I'm not giving myself credit for. They've come. I'm just giving myself credit for working on the listening that it takes to hear these messages that we get. And then I am sharing them. I don't have them all formalized, and we don't have to wait till every T is crossed and every I is dotted to know something. So I have this whole new feeling about limitations, because I have limitations, but I don't know what they are all the time, and they change. And so if I etched in stone that I can't do something, I'm not going to do it. But how do I know that today is not going to be different? Now, there are some things I just know I cannot. I can't drive yet. I know that because I can't get on the road and keep my head up because it's sunny and my head is on my lap. But there are other things that I don't want to pre-propose, I think that's the word, a limitation that says I can't do it because I don't know. So that's another thing that I've explored through all of this is what are my limitations that are really limitations? And then what is my fear? And for this is another thing. I had to look at this yesterday and go, can I do this tomorrow? Or am I going to be hurting? I have an issue now with my tear ducts, that my eyes are not tearing. And so they're dry. And that dryness is painful. So now I have to do something else at night. So I thought of this yesterday and I'm like, will I be able to do this? Or am I going to come to 4 o'clock and feel like my eyes have a bunch of rocks in them and not be able to do it? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I can't. Right now, I think I can. I'm going to do it. If I can't, I'm going to tell you, and there's an emergency, and you'll just have to understand somehow because there's emergencies that happen. But I don't want this to be an emergency. And I had to I planned a lot of today around this. Like I did some work this morning, and then about 2 o'clock, I made sure that I lie down and I closed my eyes for a while. So, and I'm a big person, you got to understand, and I don't mean that in my ego sense, because being big sometimes in the work that I do is not easy, but I have to do this. I have to be with you here now. I have to go on Instagram and share more of this. I have to do these things. And I had to be here with you. This kind of talk is so important to everyone. And so I had to plan it. I mean, I wouldn't have done that before. I would have been absolutely ready, not a problem, wouldn't have lied down, and might have gone to the bathroom first, but I wouldn't have like lied down just in case. But I did, and it's okay because now I'm here.
In the chronic illness community, we kind of refer to the spoon theory. And I think that hits the nail on the head right there. What you said is when you have a certain condition or you're trying to overcome something, you have to pace yourself for one. You have to figure out and do better planning. If you need to take rest, you take rest before and after. And that's what I did in my beginning, I say 4 years ago when I first started my healing journey. It was really understanding that I had severe limitations. And a lot of our dysautonomia community, which is the type of people that I see and speak to often, they live by that spoon theory. So they already know I have 10 spoons, and maybe showering itself is going to take 1 or 2 spoons. So I have 8 spoons remaining for the rest of the day. And so you have to prioritize what things are most meaningful for you for that particular day. And
Absolutely.
and besides that is like learning to focus in on each day at a time without projecting too far into the future. We do have plans, but we have enough stress for the day to tackle and just focus on that.
Absolutely. And the joy that I am getting from the things that I'm doing I'm so grateful. Like I am sitting here and I have bridges and all I said, I have all kinds of stuff in my mouth. And sometimes it sounds like I'm lisping. But I'm honest about it. Sometimes for some reason, the longer I speak, the more my tongue gets stuck. But you know what? I'm a human being. And this is part of my humanness. And whatever you deal with, Sharon, is part of your humanness. And this is how we're being human through this world. And if somebody else out here has eye issues or somebody else out here has whatever issues, I want everybody to the best of my ability and theirs to live the best life we can live.
I'm actually speaking to Dr. Diane Driscoll, she's opened up a POTS clinic, but she's an optometrist who specialized and actually rooted her work because of her own condition. And dry eyes was one of the catalysts for her to go into it. And
What's her name?
Dr. Diane Driscoll.
Okay, because I have go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of curious how speaking with you and then I'm going to be speaking with her, it just kind of connects us more. And
Isn't
as
that wild?
speaking and sharing is what it's all about.
Because and you don't what I would never have known that there was a doctor that specialized in dry eyes. Like I wouldn't even have given it a thought. But now I just hear this the other day, like Monday to be exact. And now you mention it. And I guarantee you a lot of people have dry eye for different reasons.
Right. And it's systemic usually. It's not like we focus on the symptom and you would go to a specialist, the optometrist, for instance, and you just focus on that, but you don't discuss the rest of the body. And that's why it's so important to look at things holistically. And that's what I've learned over the last few years.
The other night, I went to a conference last week, Monday and Tuesday. Somebody drove me, and it was a 2-day conference. And like you go into these conference areas, right? And these big ballrooms, there's a trillion lights, and every light to me is like 10 lights, because that's how light sensitive I am. And so, but I managed. And then Wednesday, I was in agony. I couldn't open my eyes till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So from the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my eyes and when one eye doesn't want to open, the other one doesn't want to open either. They are a pair, they are a couple, they want to be out in the world together, they don't like being separate. And I was in agony. And my husband said to me, "You were at a conference for 2 days. Did you drink enough water?" And I said, I probably didn't. I didn't want to bring in my big Stanley thing because I didn't want to lose it and have to schlep it around. And the water wasn't as accessible. So I said, you're probably right. And so I started drinking some water. And you know what happened? I started to sneeze. As soon as I drank the water, I started to sneeze. And then as soon as I started to sneeze, I started to like have all this fluid, and then my eyes started feeling better. And somebody said, you must have released the antihistamines.
Right. And we could talk another hour on histamines. That's one of the things I really talk about, histamines in the gut, but how the mast cells can be activated throughout the entire
body. We could talk again. I'll talk to you anytime you want, but that's exactly what happened. And you know what's so funny about this? I haven't told this to anybody really. And if this show was ending right now, how perfect would that have been?
Well, and so when you were talking about the whole release phase, I know that's one thing that we can do either mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, like you just described. So if we were going to offer some advice to our listeners now before we get off, what would be the one piece of advice that you would
Oh, God.
foremost put up front?
Listen. I mean, just listen. And, you know, I have so much advice, but I get it from other people. It's not all mine. An accumulator of advice. You know, a lot of times I lied here, and I lied in bed day in and day out. And I lied there and I said, at least I'm not dying. I have people all around me dying. Young people dying. I mean, I'm talking 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and I would say that. But but I could be dying. And we're all dying on some level, right? I say, listen, find any hope that you can, be honest, and forgiving. Forgiveness is so important to yourself and to everyone around us. One of the greatest authors of all times, he was a guru, Wayne Dyer. He said, if you don't forgive, you might as well dig 2 graves. And, whether it's to yourself or to other people, if you don't forgive, you're going to be miserable. You might as well not be here. So find a way to forgive yourself for whatever it is, whether it's the pain, whether it's why you have the pain, why you think you might have the pain, what you did wrong, you think you did wrong that you have the pain. I mean, just find that sense of forgiveness and live the best possible life at any given moment. We need everybody. We need men to speak. We need women to speak. We need kids to speak. We need everybody to speak about everything that we're going through. So we're not alone. We need community. Whether it's a community of 2 or 2 million, we need communities.
And before we leave, real quick, how can people reach you or how can they find your work?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok, Marilyn Listens. I am an influencer because I talk about these kind of real kind of things. I comment and I connect. I like connecting. So I'm there. I'm on Facebook, Marilyn Shannon on Facebook. I'm on YouTube, and I'm easy to get. Marilyn, Marilyn, Shannon, SHANNON.com. I make myself accessible. And so whether you want to call me, text me, my cell is 919-819-8981. Just reach out. I beg people to connect. Whether you connect with me or you connect with Sharon or connect with somebody, just connect.
Appreciate that so much. I'll make sure to include those links in our show notes.
Thank you.
Thank you once again.
My pleasure. Thank you. And I wish you all well.
Thank you to our listeners. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.